It's time to hear from the general manager of the Utah Mammoth, Bill Armstrong, on your exclusive home of the Utah Mammoth, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Time for our weekly conversation with the general manager of the Utah Mammoth, Bill Armstrong. And Bill, I apologize. He gives you his sincerest condolences. He's in Hawaii right now and is unable to join us right now. So I'm sure he feels horrible that he's unable to join us after sitting in 85-degree weather in Hawaii right now.
That's terrible. It must be tough for him.
I know. He feels like he's sacrificing, I'm sure. Hey, you got a couple of guys making their debuts over the last week or so. How do you feel like the youngsters are doing?
Well, good. Daniel Boot came up, and he was on a role there in the American League. And obviously he's a young kid. He's only 20 years old, but he's played 2 years of pro over in Russia, and then he went down to Tucson at the start of the season for us in the American League and played real well. And we were at a spot where we're like, you know what, let's see what he can do, and we'll give him a call and bring him into the into the team, and he's been great. I find like the pace at the NHL is so high, it takes him a little bit of time to adjust, and I thought he's done a real nice job. He plays the 200 feet of the ice. He's good offense, defensive, and he gives us something we don't have, is that size up front. So he's been a nice add for us.
I am kind of curious. When you look at guys playing professionally in Russia or in Europe, and then you got guys in the AHL, what one of those leagues comes closer to replicating the speed and physicality of the NHL?
Well, listen, Russia's a pretty good league, but it's the American League.
Okay.
If you can survive that league, it's chaos, and there's a ton of games coming at you, and it's a whirlwind for you. And I think sometimes the players set out to be an NHL player, and they, obviously they get down in the American League and they realize how good that league actually is and how hard that league is, and it's almost depressing for them, at times, because they realize the American League, it's a tough league to have success in, and they got to work their way up. But it's a great training ground for them. We had Josh Doan and the Gunthers of the world, and the Daniel Boots of the world, come up over the years, and it's been great. It's if you can play down there, you certainly give yourself a chance to play up here.
How do you, part of your job and coach's job is not just X's and O's and building a team, but also a little bit of a psychiatrist too. How do you help Logan get through some of these issues from a mental standpoint and make sure that he stays positive through, dealing with injuries? Well,
it's a great question. For a lot of times, these young hockey players, they get hurt like that. It's the first time they've ever been injured in their life. And it's one thing to deal with the injury. It's another thing to deal being away from the team, and you feel disconnected. And, you're sitting around your place, your apartment the whole time, and you're banged up. Nobody's around. The guys are on the road. And it's really, it's hard to go through, and it's hard to explain unless you've ever gone through it. But it's an eye-opening experience for the players, and then it's getting that confidence to get back and not feeling like, hey, I'm playing not to get injured. There's a whole, mental warfare that goes on, but it's truly hard for young players because some of these players, it's the first time they've ever experienced that.
What kind of opportunities that provide to other guys to try to fill in those big shoes of his?
Well, I've always felt like when there's injuries in your club, it's next man up. There's always somebody. There's always something good that happens from it. You learn something about your team, and you learn something about someone that stepped up into that new role and that new opportunity. So I always believe there's something good when injuries happen. I think that the likes of the Barrett Haydens and Nick Schmaltz has gone into center for us, so they've got opportunity to have huge impact on our team, and it's kind of that next man mentality to step up.
Bill Armstrong joining us, general manager of the Utah Mammoth. All right, I get nervous because I could see you wanting to throw the phone against the wall when I ask you this question. But I know you're not moral victory guy, but is there things you can take away from that second and third period against the Kings where you got off to the slow start but then played much better down the final stretches of that game?
I think there are. There's some lessons. The Kings are a pretty good team. They get up in front of you, and they get a goal lead that they're hard to catch. I liked a lot of the things that we did to get ourselves back into that game. A strong second, a strong third, but at the same time, we as a team, we have to find a way to get points out of those games. The NHL is too close, it's too tight. We're in the race, but at the same time, we've got to find ways to get points. We've been close, but we've lost a lot of one-goal games of late, so we've got to find a way to stay in. And I'm not a big believer in excuses, so we've got to find a way to do that, whether we're down Logan Cooley. We still have to find a way to win. And I think, our team, there's other ways we need to generate offense, and I think going to the net and shooting the puck more is something that our team can do to generate more offense.
When you got the defending champs come into town, how much of a litmus test does that team provide when you go up against them to kind of see where you're at in the development of certain guys?
Well, you can get a win against the Stanley Cup champs, if we approach that game the right way and give it to them, and you get to walk out of there knowing you beat the Stanley Cup champs. So they're used to it. It's a everyday thing for them. Everybody's trying to knock them off their perch. But definitely it's a huge game for us. And they've got that little savvy compete about them. They know how to win. They know how to win championships. So it's a great test for our group.
And they're dealing with some injury issues as well. But anytime you get a chance to watch that team, you have to take advantage of it, because I love seeing how these youngsters can handle. Because I got to imagine, you get a win against that team, the amount of capital that you can take from that for future reference. Hey, you beat these guys. You handled these guys. I got to imagine there's a lot of lessons that can be brought and referenced going forward from that game.
Well, a lot of lessons and a lot of confidence as an organization to go in there and be able to not only compete but to beat them. And I think for our team, we've done some good things this year. We've done some things where we've had some setbacks. But I always believe in the end, if you can learn from that and grow and get better every single day as a team, you got a chance to fight to the end and get into the playoffs. So there's some learning lessons for us that we've gone through so far. But I do feel like those lessons we're learning and we're getting better.
SEG's Pay It Forward Day. You got players going out in the community. Clayton Keller's leading a group of teammates, helping out with holiday gifts. The one thing I love, look, there's a lot of things I love about hockey, but this league seems to be more community-based than a lot of other leagues because they seem so tied to that community. How much fun do these guys have getting out there and helping out as much as they possibly can?
Well, I've always believed that 99% of all hockey players are great human beings, So they like to do it. I think they're genuine about it. I think they love to go to the hospitals and they love to go on the ice with the kids and to go to places and hand out Christmas gifts and wrap presents and trees for kids and do all that stuff. And they're great at that, and they're great at getting into the community and into the schools. And I've always felt like when your players are more involved in the community, they fight harder for the community on the ice. They have more pride about playing in Utah. So I think it comes from a good spot in hockey players where they want to help out, and I do believe that the favors returned, and it brings some more passion to play in front of our fans.
The fans wrote letters to the captain, obviously after the tragic loss of his father on Thanksgiving. How cool is that? I mean, that's just such a great thing from your fans to be able to come together and help out in that way. Well,
it's a huge thing. I think our fans are very caring, and they show their love to our captain, and I think that's an inspiring thing for him. And he's going through a hard time, with the loss of his father. So I think those small little moments and things that our fans do to show his appreciation for his father all help out and help motivate him. So I think he's pretty psyched about some of the letters he got.
All right, so I'm going to let you handle this as diplomatically as you'd like. And if you want to pass on it, that's totally fine. But how concerned are you, or how should fans be concerned about the quality of the Olympic game if the ice is 3 feet shorter?
They won't notice it.
They won't? Okay.
It's not going to affect you on your couch in Utah with your feet up and a couple non-alcoholic beers or sodas it's not going to affect you at all. You're going to be fine. So, and it's not going to affect the players there. It's that you won't notice it.
So this is kind of a bit of a non-story because there's a lot of people starting to throw fits about this.
I think there's the NHL does a great job with the NHLPA of making sure it's safe for the players to play. But as a hockey player, you've grown up, and when you go into a local community, the rink's a little bit different than the one you played on, and you go to the next one, it's Olympic size, and the next one's a little bit smaller. So I think always in your mind, you've always adjusted and learned to play. If you can practice on a rink the same size, I think that helps. But the safety for the players, I think they're going to be okay.
All right. This is coming from a family member wanting me to ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you watched Shoresy, and how accurate is it, if you have?
I haven't. What is that?
Oh, it's a show about a Canadian hockey league, and
okay.
it's a little bit of a rough watch, and I think that's why people are curious to know how accurate it is. But
I gotta watch it. I gotta take my next night off. I'm gonna have to watch that. What's it on?
It's on Hulu. And I was on a road trip, and I watched it. And I'm not going to lie, it's a comedy. It makes you laugh. I would say if you're it's not something you want to watch in front of the kids out there if you're listening right now. But it is the language is something. But it's a rather entertaining show for sure. So I'll send you a link to it.
I'll give you some feedback on that. I'll have to watch it.
All right, sounds good. Hey, thanks, Bill. We appreciate your time as always.
Thanks very much. Appreciate having me on.
All right, sounds good. Lloyd, I think you would actually like that. It was a show that a family member of mine, and I'm not even going to out him because this show's the language is extreme. Let's just say that. But I will say that it's entertaining. Have you heard of it?
I have. I haven't watched it. I haven't even seen a preview of it, but I have heard of it. And by the way, I think this is a sign that I'm getting older because I start to see these, and I'm like, oh my gosh, geez, guy, this is getting a little risque or whatever. Sometimes geez, we're really pushing the envelope, aren't we?
It's just language. That's the gist of it. But boy, they say some things that are like, whoa, okay then. But I don't know. I was watching it on a road trip, and that's the only time I really have time to catch up on shows. Is when I'm traveling. And so you get on a plane and you can binge watch through a show pretty quick. And I knocked out a few seasons of that over this last trip. And it's one of those where you start laughing and you're like, I should not be laughing at that. And you're looking around like nobody, like my speakers aren't on. People can't hear this, right? Okay, good.
10:30 at night has become my watching time for my shows.
Yeah.
Then I know the kids are sound asleep.
Well, you've never been opposed to bad language around the kids.
Don't. It was an accident, Scotty. It was an accident. How long are you going to hold on to that?
A while, actually.
I slipped.
A while, yeah. You fox hollowed that thing, and that's fine.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, and you won't let me forget it.
Well, as soon as you let me forget about Fox Hollow, then I think we can we can let it. All right, fair enough. By the way, can't thank Bill enough for coming on, and I always appreciate chatting with him. Josh Furlong's going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes from right now. Get his thoughts from the perspective of the University of Utah. All right, I do need a little life advice here from you, Lloyd, though. So I was at the airport trying to come home and dealing with a lot of delays, a lot of issues, and I don't know what's going on with airlines right now. But like in the middle of the government shutdown, I was able to get around easier than I have been over these last two trips. It's been nightmares. But anyway, so I go to one of the little stores to grab an energy drink and a Coke.
$15 energy drink.
Oh
yes.
Boy, they get you in those airports.
Yeah.
Whew. So anyway, and so I'm go up to the counter, and the man. Now this was in where was I at? This was in Charlotte. And I go to pay, and this guy, a gentleman, and he wasn't like 20 years old. This guy looked to be in his 40s or 50s, and he was super nice. He's like, "How are you, sir?" I'm like, "I'm great. I'm great." He's like, and so I go, and he's like, "Is that all you need?" I'm like, "Yep. Anything else I can do for you?" Nope. He's like, "Would you like me to apply the senior discount to this?" And I stopped for a second. I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, no. Now, I should have. Look, if you're going to put me out there like that, then I might as well have just said, yeah, knock off a buck or two or whatever the senior discount is.
Hands would have.
Had I been in that mode, but I was so.
And then he would have crushed him.
Yeah. I was so taken back by it that I was like, no, I don't want your stupid senior discount. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, all right. So wait a minute. How old do you think I am? Now, this is on the heels of the Mountain West Conference Media Day when Hans asked a player from Colorado State how old he thought we were. And he put me at 61. And he put Hans at 57, 56. And so that's already rattling around in my brain. That already rattled my cage. And so I go to this guy and I'm like, all right, sir, just for the record, how old do you think I am? And he's like, well, he goes, the senior discount doesn't apply until you're 65. And he goes, I don't think you're that old. And I'm like, oh, well, good. I go, so how old do you think I am? He's like, I don't know, 61, 62, 63. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
now, look, I understand.
I think that's somebody that would just fail at working at a carnival. There are people like that have really bad judgments in age, weight, you name it. Like there are just people like that are aloof.
Okay, but I mean, and I know he was trying to be nice, like he was trying to offer it, but I didn't want it because it would be out of principle conceding that I'm not that old. And so I told him, I'm like, how old do you think I am? He goes, well, 63. And I'm like, he goes, how old are you? And I'm like, 49.
I haven't even hit 50.
I'm not even at double nickels. I'm not even at single nickel yet. And he's like, no. I'm like, yeah. And so I had to pull out my driver's license and show it to this guy to prove that I was not in my 60s. Now, look, I get it. I get it. Like, you know what? Some of us may age a little quicker than others from a aesthetic standpoint. Totally get it. I'm willing to accept it. I understand, during the whole, dropping some LB, sometimes that affects, some things and how you look. I get that too. But you can't tell me, I look 63 years old, right? Right?
Hey, some people,
Please.
I'm telling you, Jackson thinks I'm on the verge of dying.
Well, yeah, your kids are not the best judgment of how old you are.
He thinks I'm going to be dying any moment. So that's where I sit on that.
But even our dude that sends over, our great listener who sends us AI pictures of ourselves, like that picture of us as pirates made me look like I was 92 years old.
AI is not fair. AI is inaccurate. Let's be honest. Come on. I agree. It makes me look like I'm in my 60s.
Somehow,
meanwhile, there's Hans.
Somehow Hans looks like he's 25 and ready to break dudes.
I know. Exactly.
I don't know, man. Like that hit me. I've been called a lot of bad things. Like you do radio, you do sports radio, you say things that people don't agree with or things that people don't like. And now you have social media where people have connections to you and can come at you at any given moment and say just whatever they want under the cloak of anonymity. And so I've heard some stuff. Trust me, I've heard some things. And, most of it,
cowards.
A bunch of, 95% of it doesn't really bother me. It did at first, but now you kind of get callous to it, so it doesn't really bother me that much. But then when I get some random dude in an airport who I will never see again, said that I look like I was 63 years old, that one, for some reason, I cannot get over. And I've been a mess ever since. And it's like, wait a minute, I've been called a lot of things. And it never really affected me. But for some reason, I don't know. And maybe it's because, the health kick and trying to drop LBs, you're feeling good about yourself. Like, all right,
And I would say, I think you feel like you're going the other way. You're looking younger.
Okay. Look, I appreciate what you're doing here, Lloyd.
Scotty,
I really do.
Come on.
And
looking spry.
It's not often that you're my hype guy, and I really appreciate you doing that. But, I get it. I totally understand. I look older than most dudes my age, but not that old. Eesh.
Though I will say the layers that you are adding on because you get so cold, it does give you an older feel. So maybe that's what it is.
No,
were you wearing your beanie?
I was wearing the beanie.
Hey.
But I thought that would make me look younger because it covers the hairline.
That might go the other direction.
You think?
Yeah, I think the beanie might hurt you.
Right.
Well, maybe you just need to go with a hat, a hip hat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that's what everybody wants to see their 63-year-olds get a little hipper.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. All right, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
As Utes, Cougars, and Aggies, yeah, we've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Mo money doesn't come with mo problems for the University of Utah. Josh Furlong, KSL.com, Ute Insider, kind enough to join us. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing well, Scotty. How are you?
Good. $500 million help out your bank account? Because it certainly seems like it's going to help out University of Utah's.
Hey, can we just get, because we cover the U, can we get a little bit of that cut? I mean, I'll take a half of a percent, get whatever we need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we're not asking for much. 1% would be fine. I'd be totally fine with that. So, look, there's a lot of people that are concerned about this because anytime you let private equity get involved, there's a high level of accountability, and they run things like a business and a for-profit business, which University of Utah Athletics now is. Where's your concern level about this? Obviously, the money's great, but there's also a lot of strings that come attached with this stuff.
Yeah, obviously, short term, it's great, right? You get an infusion of cash that absolutely helps the university in this day and age where it's really difficult to be able to fund all the different demands that you have, whether that be through the revenue share contracts or anything else with NIL. That's great. But obviously, like you said, private equity, that always comes with, kind of this hesitation to want to accept it, and for good reason, because a lot of these private equity firms, they go in there, they obviously want to increase profits. And then when you can't get that or it doesn't work out, they gut you and things, are ruined. So, I think there's definitely fear in that regard, but I do think the way that Utah has kind of organized this, I don't want to say it eliminates all risk because there's always risk associated with this, right? Especially in any for-profit arm of anything. But I think with what they've done and being able to maintain controlling interest, being able to utilize that cash to be able to help both of these parties grow, that at least gives it much more of a fighting chance because now both parties have to be able to kind of put forth their effort. And so one of the things that kind of struck me from one of the members of the board was talking about this as kind of a mentorship, right? This is an opportunity for them to give you that foot in the door, so to speak, so that you can get in and get all the resources that you need to make this work and then eventually see that exit. Now, the path to get that exit and where that leads Utah and what happens along the way, that's obviously the real meat of the story and trying to figure out what it is. But, I think at least the way that they've structured it at least makes more sense than just this raw private equity deal where they're throwing you a bunch of cash and you don't know what the next 5 or 7 years are going to look like.
Interesting. I did see Charlie Baker from the NCAA was asked about it, and he said it's something that I think Utah did a very how they handled it was smartly done, and that the NCAA was at least was made aware of the background on it. And so there's a lot of people signing off on this that are saying, yeah, it's a smart move. And I think the thought, when you bring up the thought of an exit plan from this, I like that. And I like the fact that this is looking at like, hey, look, we need some help right now. Let's get that help right now and then find a way to mutually kind of perhaps in the next decade or so kind of separate from this.
Yeah, and I think part of that, too, is this is an entity that they don't want to see ever go away, right? It's more using them to be able to get that jump start and then slowly see them exit, but then fill that in with either other strategic partners or not, depending on how they're able to make it work. And so the one thing that kind of gives you, a modicum of belief that this can work is that this is more based on by boosters trying to support. Instead of just throwing money into some unlimited pool where you're essentially burning it because you don't know where that money's going to go, this now has true potential to be able to have investment potentials, where you can grow that revenue. You can then utilize it in a way, in a more for-profit avenue that you couldn't before. And so there's benefits there because now you have people that are attached to the university, people that are highly invested in the university wanting to succeed, putting money into this in a way that is far less than just throwing money into an athletic department that's going to burn it at will. You don't know what the coaches are going to do with it. You don't know what sponsors are going to do with it. This is a little bit different in that regard. It still comes with risk by all means.
Yeah.
But I think there's at least more of a backing to this where everybody knows that you're going to need an infusion of cash in any level of the athletic departments around the country. And if this works, it's beautiful, right? Like, this is a great idea, and Utah's going to be looked at as this, revolutionary, program that changed the way of college that changes the landscape of college athletics. But if it fails, this becomes kind of, one more part of the NCAA problem where, nobody can get it right, and it's just another problem after another problem.
Now, I don't know what failure looks like and how bad that can be, but I do applaud the University of Utah, the Board of Trustees, Mark Harlan, and everybody that came on board with this, because so much. And look, I loved Utah and the Pac-12. I love that conference, but I do think the Pac-12 was, and this is a reason why they may not really exist anymore, they were too reactionary and not really innovative on how to get ahead of issues. And so I applaud the University of Utah on this and being like, you know what? Everybody's waiting to see who the first one is to jump in the pool. We'll do it, and let's go, and let's see what happens, because if we just sit here on the sidelines and let the world pass us by, we can't do it. So let's at least try to do something, and I admire that.
Yeah, you have to admire that. I mean, I think the fact that they're not just kind of waiting on the sidelines hoping that it works, or that they can find something down the line after it's been proven, kind of shows their level of commitment to this, right? This isn't just some haphazard thing. This is something that they started the process in June of last year of trying to come up with a way to fund the athletics. They knew, the NCAA ruling was going to come down. The House ruling was going to come down. They knew that there was going to be a situation where suddenly you're going to have to fund at least $20 million. On top of that, you have NIL. You have all these things. And so, you have to credit Taylor Randall of all these people, and there's many people to thank there, but you have to credit him for kind of his grand vision of what this is. He also sees this beyond this, right? I think if you take a next step beyond this, they're realizing that the landscape of college athletics is nowhere near settled. And if they can use this as kind of a leverage point to maybe get to a higher level, whether that be the Big Ten or whatever the Power 2 structure looks like or whatever that may be, this is another stepping stone to get there, where if it works, now you're suddenly in a much better and more favorable landing spot than trying to be the guy coming from behind and saying, hey, pick us, pick us.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was expressed to me when I was talking to some people earlier this morning about this, and they said that, it would be really easy to say, and frankly a little lazy to say that, this is done to keep pace with BYU. And in reality, what it is, and this is the same thing that BYU's doing, is everybody's just trying to position themselves so that when the dust clears, whether it be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, that you've got a seat at the big boys table. Because you're right, this is going to a Power 2. It's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC, and then whoever else they want to invite into the party, and you want to get one of those invitations.
Well, there's a reason why Taylor Randall has laid out the plan that he has beyond just this private equity. If you may remember, I think it was about 6 months ago, the university laid out a plan to completely renovate and change the entire look of the university campus and create these different areas, whether it be entertainment districts or other avenues where, the Huntsman Center being demolished as part of that aspect of it. They're trying to build up this new campus, so to speak, to be able to position themselves in a way that it works, whether that be increasing student body, increasing, the dorms, increasing the facilities. They're doing all of those things as a step to be able to get to whatever that future landscape looks. This now is just another vehicle to get there, and it just so happens to be one that can actually fund a ton of money, and it also lines up very well with kind of what the Big Ten is doing right now as well. They're trying to find private equity deals to be able to get there. So, the university hasn't been shy about their ideals of trying to get to, everybody says the Big Ten, and I think that lines up based off of like their academic affiliations, different things that way. But it's really just lining up in general with whatever that Power 2 structure or whatever that new structure looks like, where they can now position themselves and say, hey, look, we check this box, we check this box, we check this box. Oh, by the way, now we have the funds. We've created a model that works. That's what Utah's trying to do. So, yeah, as much as it is about now, they're genuinely looking to the future, and it may blow up in their face, right? We still don't know, but they're trying to look to the future to be able to get into that better landing spot.
So when you look at, you've covered Utah for a long time. You've seen a lot of really good Utah teams. This is a team that lost to a top 4 team in the college football playoff, and a team that is making a lot of noise saying that they should be in the college football playoff in Texas Tech and BYU. This is a 10-2 Utah team. Frankly, the conversation should be, should Utah be in the college football playoff as well? Because the season they put together sadly isn't getting talked about enough, but this is one of Kyle Whittingham's better teams. Am I exaggerating in saying that?
No, not at all. And I mean, I think when you look at it, there's really just not that many 10-win seasons that take place in Utah history. If I look back, I think Kyle Whittingham has had only 8 over his entire tenure, and of that, 4 of those came with a regular season 10 wins. So I mean, this is not just something to say, oh, they got 10 wins. This was a pretty remarkable turnaround in what Utah was able to do at a Power 4 level. I think the problem with why there's not so many people commenting about Utah is, one, the way the last 2 games went, right? The run defense just absolutely was porous. Things didn't work out very well. You kind of sputtered to the end. Yes, you got wins, but it came as a come from behind stuff. But then there was always just kind of that factor of you're always going to be behind BYU. Maybe if Utah went out and absolutely destroyed Kansas State and then destroyed Kansas, maybe you had a little bit of a belief that maybe if BYU loses that championship game that they could get Utah could jump. But I just think there was always kind of a ceiling for Utah with where the committee ranked them, that there wasn't going to be any more of these resume builders, right? Like, you're not playing another top 25 team. And so it just became a challenge for this Utah team to get there. With that said, this is a team that is on the fringe. And I think I told many people at the beginning of the season that if you can be in that conversation, whether it be for a conference championship or into the playoffs, I think that's success right there, right? And if you can now parlay that success into next year, that's going to help, right? Like, it's learning to kind of stack these seasons where BYU gets a benefit as well from being able to stack seasons. And you could argue maybe they didn't get the benefit that they needed. But when you continue to stack seasons, you can kind of start getting those benefits of the doubt because you keep proving it. Utah can now say, yeah, we had 1 or 2 bad seasons because of injuries. But if you look beyond that, we were in the Pac-12 championship 4 out of the last 5 years. Now, if we can get into it, we're in the conversation of the Big 12. That at least gets you in that conversation and allows you to kind of be a part of that conversation moving forward.
So Nebraska moved the meter for you. It's a name, but not necessarily a great team. Utah already a high favorite in that game. And in Vegas, you are playing in an NFL stadium. How do you think this is resonating with Utah fans right now?
It's been kind of an interesting mixed bag because, 2 years ago when Utah got to the Vegas Bowl, I think people were just done, right? And I think it also was 2 days before Christmas, and so there wasn't a lot of excitement. I'm getting a little bit more excitement about this team based on kind of the interactions that I've seen and the people that I've talked to. Nebraska, it's a Big Ten opponent, and obviously you want to go beat up on one of those, especially in the conversations that we had earlier. But I think just with what this Nebraska team presents, it's not really that exciting of a matchup because you go from being ranked 15th in the country with a 10-2 season to playing a 7-5 team that's 10th in the Big Ten. Like, it doesn't have the same validity to it. But at the same time, with where Utah's been in with bowl games and being on a 5-game losing skid, I think there's optimism that to finally turn the corner and say, hey, we don't know how long these bowl games are going to last. Obviously, the playoffs are the ideal. But if we can go and get another win in a bowl game, I think that gives at least another reason to be happy and successful. So I think there's optimism. I think fans are happy for it. It obviously comes at a better time in Las Vegas. People can go celebrate New Year's Eve, if you're into that kind of stuff. And so I think there's more optimism that way to be able to see your team out on a high note, especially knowing that a majority of those guys are most likely to come back for next year. So you're not going to have a ton of opt-outs.
Josh Furlong joining us, KSL.com, Utah insider, has covered the Utes for a long time. So are you getting a vibe on Kyle? Does it feel like the longer this goes on, the more likely that he's coming back?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, there's a handful of us media in the Kansas press or in the media room at the end, and it was a completely different vibe from Kyle than I've ever seen before. Like, everything was lining up to say Kyle was leaving, right? And I won't get into all the specifics, but it was clear that this was different. He was kind of soaking it up. Things were changing. And then as the week went on after that game, I started hearing rumblings that he was considering coming back. And so, I think this is a guy that really just he's struggling with not being in football, which is something that he's been in his entire life. I had an interview with him that just the two of us did a while back ago for a story about his son coaching, and he just said he's nervous about retirement. He doesn't know what that looks like. He's not sure that he's ready to hang it up in terms of being the guy that can just sit on the sidelines and be a fan. And so I think that's really weighing in on him. There's also conversations that I've had with people that talk about how he really thought in this transfer portal era that it would be much more transactional, meaning you wouldn't get to love the players the same way that you do. You don't get attached to them. And he's absolutely found that not to be the case. And so, he's latched on to Devin Dampier. He's latched on to Bird Ficklin and all these other players. And so it's become so much more difficult to try to walk away, especially when things are good and when you can see kind of what you can be next year. So, I think he sees that the writing's on the wall, that he has to walk away eventually. But if he can continue to ride it out, especially with the 10-2 year, with another year that you could go be in the playoffs potentially, it's tough to kind of want to turn that away and let somebody else benefit from a lot of what you've been able to build on.
Yeah, and I think, you got Lavelle, who is a mentor, and Lavelle went a long time before shutting it down, but then also could he have enjoyed life a little bit more instead of just, schmucking it up with me and Ron McBride and hands on the radio? Like, is there more that he could have? I can see the emotions both ways. He probably got Jamie in his ear saying, hey, let's spend more time with the grandkids. This is a tough call, man. This is a really tough decision for him, because ultimately, very rarely in sports do you get to go out on your own, and he has a chance to do that if he wants.
Well, the thing with him is, I've always thought it was kind of like an either-or thing, where it's you coach football and sacrifice your family. And if you retire, it's now taking a priority over your family and spending time with grandkids. The more I've talked to different people that are close to him, the more it's been shown that he actually intertwines those. And so it's like he's finding a different way to create this kind of work-life balance where football is obviously everything, but he's finding ways where the grandkids can be a part of that, where the kids can be a part of that. And so I think that's what's making it even more challenging, is to him, it's like, I've found that balance, right? Like, yeah. I don't need to go and say, hey, we're just going to go travel and I'm going to go spend time with grandkids. I still get to spend time with grandkids, but I also get to do everything that I love. So, it's tough. I don't envy him, because it is a tough decision, and he still believes, that ego of his, that he can do it, and he's proven that he can, especially this year at the 10-2 record. So, until proven otherwise, you got to kind of believe him. But at the same time, there comes a point where there's a diminishing return, right? Where are you staying on too long, and then what happens? Do you get a season like last year where it's a 5-7, and now you're walking away looking at what could have been?
Josh, we appreciate it. Great stuff and great insight as always at KSL.com. Get there now. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
There he is, Josh Furlong. All right, take a break, come back, wrap up this bad boy, get you ready for JJ and Alex next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.